Hallo.
Yes, that's a better one.
And we're live. You can start,
Is this on? It's on? Yes. Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Birgit and this is the roundtable on one day everyone will have always been against this. Activism for Gaza and free Palestine in Estonia. And the panelists, Ben, Agnes, Kristi and Toni, they're each going to talk about themselves via their engagement. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time introducing them. Just so you know, Ben, Toni and myself, we work at Tallinn University, and since the beginning of this violence, the streak of Israeli violence, we've been active in different roles. And then Kristi and Agnes are more representing today the activism part. So how we're going to do this? I just came back from Beirut, Lebanon, so I'm going to spend in the beginning a couple of moments talking about a friend who is currently a volunteer in Gaza, and he sent me a brief statement which I want to share with you because obviously a lot of information is not reaching outside. So there will be a statement and then basically we will spend some time on 4 different questions. So we will start with what is our responsibility as citizens, activists, scholars at the time of genocide. Then we're talking a little about the role of activism in world politics in Estonia. Then we can talk about what activism means to all of the panelists, and we will end with activism for Gaza and free Palestine in the world and Estonia. So these are kind of the broad topics, and each of the panelists can kind of talk about some of the aspects. So I'm going to start with the statement. So here are the observations from a friend who I currently cannot name, but he is working in Gaza as a healthcare professional. And this is his statement. Nowhere is safe in Gaza, and the sense that one could leave the house and never return to one's children has become normal. Or they might find that their children have died, as happened to the pediatrician Dr. Ala al-Najjar, who lost 9 children, and then her husband in an airstrike. I'm one of 9, and I cannot even start to think or imagine how my mum would have felt if she hears that all her children have died. Dr. al-Najjar isn't an exception. Death of this scale has become the norm in Gaza, just like many things that have been normalized in a way that makes one wonder, what world do we live in that allows this to happen and continue? You can see misery, despair, hunger, hopelessness, and fear in people's eyes and on their faces. People are scared for their basic safety. They're also scared of what is yet to come. Every time they think they have faced the worst, they soon realize there is yet worse to come. Some have already been displaced 7, 8, 9 times. The thought of being displaced yet one more time is so unbearable that some are saying, if we get the next evacuation orders, I'm going to stay where I am. I'm not moving. I'd rather die. People are actually hungry. This isn't a metaphor and not an exaggeration. It is real hunger. A friend told us that his 3-year-old daughter cries every day for hours as they have no bread. You want to see how her face lit up when she had a little piece of bread. People are angry and they feel left alone and abandoned. People are numb as they have had to suppress their emotions so that they can go looking for water and bread. Most people are displaced, living in tents on the western coastal area of Al-Mawazi, where the Israeli army has asked them to evacuate to. Yet that never meant that they are safe. Civilians have been attacked in their tents, and we hear of daily airstrikes and drone attacks on tents, killing and injuring civilians. People are exhausted. The Palestinian people in Gaza have been dehumanized in every way that their life has been reduced to mere survival. To worse than hell on earth, as the chief of the Red Cross said yesterday. A hamster wheel of running around trying to find some of the most basic things while bombs are falling on their heads, paying the highest price for that, sometimes paying with their life, as happened the last few days when dozens of people were killed and hundreds injured as they were bombed on their way to pick up aid from the points that Israeli army has set up for this purpose. What they lack: basic safety, food, water, decent places to live in. These are all things we take for granted everywhere else. These are basic human rights. This has got to stop. No one talks feelings here in Gaza, not because they don't feel, not because they are not sophisticated enough. They are beautiful people. They are intelligent and well-educated. They are sophisticated. However, and in the words of one of my friends in Gaza, because talking about feeling is a luxury here, we need to stay alive. So this was a statement from my friend who is currently volunteering in Gaza as a healthcare professional. I cannot release his name at the moment, when hopefully he will return safe and sound. So before I want to open up the panel and talk about what is our responsibility, I'm going to steal some more time and kind of offer a starting point for us as I kind of think through what is my responsibility. So I'm going to answer this with two stories. So first, the Palestinian poet and scholar Refat Al-Arer, who reflects back to his childhood and how his mother found agency, power in telling stories, and has said, writing in 2014, and I quote, "To me, storytelling is one of the ingredients of Palestinian sumud, steadfastness. Stories teach life, even if the hero suffers and dies at the end." In 2008 and 2009, Israel's 23-day large-scale offensive war on Gaza, called Operation Cast Lead, murdered more than 1,400 Palestinians, including 400 children, and injured thousands, most of whom were children, women, and elderly people. Many of the injured were disabled for life, and many of those murdered left children, husbands, wives, widowed for life. Israel destroyed back then 6,000 housing units. More than 20,000 Palestinians were made homeless, some forcibly displaced for the fourth or fifth time in their lives. Everyone was a possible target. I hope this sounds similar, because we are again at this point. So Rafat says, "It was clear as crystal to Gazans then that Israel was deliberately and systematically targeting life and hope, and that Israel wanted to make sure that after the offensive we had nothing of either to cling to, and that we are silenced forever." So in the immediate aftermath of the Israeli operation, Rafat returned to his work. "I went back to my classrooms and to my students at the English department of the Islamic University in Gaza. Scars were everywhere. Every single person in Gaza had to mourn a loved one. I started inviting my friends and students to write about what they had endured and to bear witness to the anguish the operation had caused. This is how the collection Gaza Writes Back was born. This was published in 2014, consisting of 23 stories to reflect the 23 days of Israeli offensive. As Rafat says, to showcase some of the Palestinian voices. As you know, Israeli army killed Rafat on 6th of December 2023. A couple of months later, Israeli army killed his eldest daughter and her child as well in northern Gaza. So, the second story, and I promise I will get to the point as well. Many of you have seen in the news the brave groups of people on a boat named Freedom Flotilla Madlin heading to Gaza to break the Israeli siege and bring much needed humanitarian aid and food to people. They have still hours to go. We sit with a lot of anxiety because this isn't the first time international in close partnership with Palestinians have tried to bring aid to Gaza. So the Free Gaza movement attempted over 3 years since Israel imposed the siege on Gaza to break it from the sea, and a few times they made it. Mazin Gumzieh, in his book Popular Resistance in Palestine, writes that, and I quote, "Yet both when they succeeded and when they were forcibly prevented and detained by the Israeli Navy, the Free Gaza movement scored notable success." In the words of one of the members, so I'm going to quote one of the members who was on a similar freedom flotilla in 2009. So, starting. On June 30, 2009, Israeli occupation forces forcibly boarded one of our boats, the Spirit of Humanity, and kidnapped 21 human rights workers and journalists who were on their way to deliver much-needed humanitarian and reconstruction supplies to the besieged Gaza, including the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Mairead Maguire and former US Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney. They were held in jail for a week before being deported. Though we were stopped on this particular voyage, it wasn't a failure. In the month after our boat was hijacked, over 100,000 news stories, essays, blog entries, action alerts, and radio and television were made on Israel's violent response to our mission. By choosing to violently confront and kidnap unharmed human rights workers on a mission of mercy, Israel publicly demonstrated both the illegality and absurdity of the Gaza siege. So, after these two stories, I just want to reflect that there have been people writing about Gaza. It is absolutely like one of the most important tasks that Palestinians see for themselves and what they're asking for people outside. So I really feel that we need to always throw light on and also put our principles we stand by in action and always firmly stand against oppression and occupation. Because of particularly the Palestinian cause and how it has been silenced, we need to always break this. And obviously we can use different tools, but stories are absolutely powerful. With this, I'm going to actually turn to the panelists. So whoever wants to start to think about the first question, which is basically our responsibilities as citizens, as activists, as scholars, however you see your role.
I can go first. I would even feel funny to call myself an activist. I think I would just like to call myself a human being. And if I see something in the world or I hear about something in the world that I feel that is wrong in the frames of law or it's wrong in the scale of empathy, then as a human being, I feel my responsibility should be just to share and to say what I think and why I feel it's wrong. And I feel already calling this activism already somehow like giving the opposition the chance to say, oh, you know, all those in that box of activists, like all the weirdos and leftists. no, as a human being, everybody has a role to play here, and you don't need to be an activist to somehow change something in the world.
Yeah, it's on. Hello? Okay, yeah, it works. I just want to begin this by saying thank you all for coming. Thank you for sharing the story with us. Most of all, yes. And thank you to Progressiivne movement for actually organizing this panel. I think this is something that we really need in Estonia and in the Baltic states more generally. What motivates me to do this, so from my own personal experience, I don't really do research on Palestine. I don't do research on human rights. I don't do research on genocide, but I do research. And to me, knowledge has always been deeply implicated with power. Unfortunately, many of my colleagues who are not very active on this issue for various reasons kind of claim that knowledge is intimately intricated with power, even while they say that they do not want to comment on these issues because they do not see themselves as experts on the matter. And I completely disagree. I don't think anyone needs to be an expert on the matter to kind of hold basic values of humanity, to read reports by major international NGOs such as Amnesty International that, you know, in effect lead to only one conclusion, and not to mention other experts like Neve Gordon, Elke Schwartz, and many others who have written on the issue of Palestine. So when I think about my own responsibility, and I am a lecturer as well, I do teach at Tallinn University, I think of it in terms of not education, and also in terms of simply, you know, if I know that something is happening, how can I keep silent about it? If I have evidence that something is happening, how can I keep my voice down? And no, like Agnes here, I don't necessarily think of myself as an activist here, but I do hold this civic responsibility in very high regard, because I do think, and this is something that many have written about historically. We have, for example, Hannah Arendt wrote about it nearly 100 years ago at this stage, that if we do not think these things that are happening, if we do not talk about them, if we do not publicly act around them or even against them if necessary, then they do come back to haunt us. Silences that we practice every day are not just absences. They are political moves that show many things, including various power dynamics. We had a debate, and I'm not going to go for much longer here, but we had a debate, I think, in the fall at Tallinn University. It was a kind of closed-off debate, so I cannot go into the details, but one of the colleagues wrote that, you know, Estonia should be more compassionate to Israel because Israel is surrounded by enemies, in effect, and Israelis have nowhere to go, but the Palestinians, on the contrary, have a place to go because they are Arabs and they are Muslims. And it was shocking to even read something like that. And this, I think this has really particularly galvanized me to just stop caring about how other people feel about Palestine and just speak about it quite openly. And in that context, we also started doing these sit-ins for Palestine, well, sit-ins against genocide at Tallinn University. They happen every Thursday at 11:45 a.m. I think we will have one more before kind of the summer break starts. So I invite anyone who is willing to come or has time to come to also join us and just raise awareness for this issue. That would be it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, before I give it over, I just want to add a small comment. I totally feel that we should all have the freedom to define our roles, but what I really want to counter is activism as something weird or kind of like I have done this labor a bit, so if you want to read about what it means to be a scholar activist, like let's remember historically all the people still alive, but a bit older than us, who have stood up for this right. From Angela Davis to many others, right? So let's please normalize activism and let's not contribute towards this discourse that makes it feel that these people have a problem. So as Toni said, activists are asking, what is the purpose of the knowledge we hold? And we are putting it to use. as Patricia Hill Collins says, in the service of social justice, right? So, and as Toni said very pointedly, each of the academics are making political moves because they're using their knowledge. It's just like there's a difference between if they claim that we are neutral still. Like they hold on to this neutrality as they support certain programs, certain ideas of how our economy should function, you know, supporting neoliberalism, being against, you know, not openly siding with all the knowledge we have of the climate crisis and so forth. Yeah, I just wanted to say this, that please let's normalize activism and let's not contribute to the discourse that is kind of the dominant one.
It's up to you. You can go first.
I would disagree with Birgit. Maybe that works then very well. First of all, also hello everybody. Yeah, I'm Ben. I'm also teaching at Tallinn University International Relations. I'm also from Germany and being in Estonia for a long time, so I feel like there's a particular responsibility that falls onto Germans to kind of, well, I have so many thoughts what they should be doing, but first of all, starting to wake up and stop issuing just kind of, you know, blank checks to Israel. You can do whatever we want because of what we did in the past. But a long story, so I feel like a very deep responsibility as a German to finally, like, kind of to stand up, to clearly voice what is actually going on in Israel, in Palestine. I mean, I don't really want to disagree with Birgit, but I do see there is a danger of stressing activism as the term itself a lot, because everybody who do not call themselves activists, they're kind of taking their responsibility off. So especially as scholars or lecturers, as we were just discussing it, they are like, well, the activist scholars are dealing with this. I'm just a scholar, so I don't actually have to speak up on this. I don't have the responsibility to talk about this. But I am wondering, what is the role of a scholar in a society such as Estonia? And I think it's actually very similar to the role that you described of a human being. When I see something is wrong, I need to speak up about this. And I'm also thinking a little further, like, if we are citizens of a state, don't we also have a responsibility to make sure that the state, the society that we're in, runs a certain way? So if we want a democracy, we need to work for democracy. We need to stand in for it. If we want human rights, we need to stand for human rights. In fact, we need to stand for human rights everywhere. We need to stand for democracy everywhere. And then if I think about myself as a scholar, as a person that has the privilege to be in a classroom with students to talk about this, isn't my role to exactly kind of breed these citizens, right? To make them want democracy, human rights, stand for what's right or wrong, understand when I see a war crime to be able to call it what it is. So kind of from this position, I feel like it is the role of any scholar, and I'm fine if we say we all need to be activists or something like this, or if this is activism, then I guess we are this, but I'm sometimes afraid that this gets exactly, we're pointed in the wrong weird corner, even though it's actually our responsibility, full stop, all of us. Make sure democracy is alive, make sure if we see fascism, we call it out for what it is and fight against it. So if the Israeli government is a fascist government, then it's my responsibility, very simple, as a scholar and a citizen, to call it a fascist government and make sure that it changes into something else. How many far away it seems to be from us. We have written quite a bit in the media as well, Toni, Birgit, and I in particular, that yes, it seems far away, but it's coming back also to Estonia. Like, if human rights are not treated, if they're not valued, protected in Gaza, and in Sudan, in Syria, it's just a matter of time till it comes back here. You know, human rights are not actually protected in Ukraine. You know, we, in a way, as an international society, we let Russia attack Ukraine, kind of do not value the human rights of Ukrainians. And it's just like a next step of, you know, impunity towards people who break human rights, that it can come here. So we, you know, it's our responsibility to point these things out everywhere. And then hopefully also, you know, maybe in a way of self-preservation as well. It's an act of empathy, obviously, but I would counter many arguments that it's far away, kind of in this way. Yes.
Yeah. I guess I'll try to put it or I mean, the way I view things is extremely simplistic, in the sense that for me, activism in itself is more of a, it's not a noun, it's a verb, kind of, in the sense that it's not something, and exactly like what you pointed out, it doesn't feel, I mean, if I were to say that if I would give myself any kind of adjective or describe myself as I don't know, outgoing, or that's fine, but if I were to describe myself as an activist, somebody who's active in, I don't know, voicing certain opinions and being active in the society that I'm in, then that becomes somehow like it's put on a pedestal, like, ooh, you're one of the, like, you know, what are you doing, trying to change the world, but it's something that is something that I think every single human being is an activist at the end of the day. I mean, we're all passionate about something. I mean, your mother is passionate about, I don't know, like what the neighbors are doing, or who's, you know, in the building is somebody's not throwing the trash properly, or you know, they're ruining the grass, or so. I mean, that in itself, that is also kind of being active based on your surrounding. But if you see your surrounding as beyond this building that you live in, or beyond this village that you live in, or beyond this town or country, if you see yourself as your whole surrounding is a global surrounding, this is why we have people who care about the environment. This is why we have people who care about human rights. This is because it's not just about I would feel bad. I could be an active person at school, but I mean, ultimately, when you start going beyond a certain scope, then that somehow feels as if you've taken on too much. But it's not, because it's like these are bubbles, and if these bubbles are everywhere, then it all just becomes this one big community. And so for me, I think we are all activists. I mean, we are all passionate about something, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, whether it's positive or negative. And the fact that at this point, we have chosen to be extremely active on the topic of Palestine or Gaza doesn't mean that we can't be active on everything else around us, or in so many other topics. It's not an exclusive thing. And when I speak to my children about this, or when I speak to my neighbors about this, I mean, maybe that is a form of activism. Maybe it's me teaching certain people. And when you just talk about it, that already makes you active in the topic, whatever the topic is at the end of the day. So I completely agree with Ben in that sense. And I agree with all of you in the sense that we have to normalize activism, but even the way we talk about activism, it has to sound normal, like anything else that we do. And that's the way, I feel that maybe this will help everybody feel that even if you just do one little thing, that means you're active in that topic, or you're active in, you do what you can.
Yeah.
I think this was really, thanks Kristi, I think this was really excellent in a sense that you mentioned this idea of talking to your neighbors, which I do think is the most important thing. It's really easy to kind of write in the media, or stand behind a pulpit if you're a preacher, or be an academic and hide in a classroom and teach about the world to everyone. But I think the most important thing is to try to get this measure of publicity out there. Publicity is also talking to your neighbors. It's public kind of action. And I do think that this brings me to this idea that, whether you call it activism or not, I mean, even if I don't call myself an activist, I stand on the shoulders of activists, right? And it's unfortunate to me that many people who are, excellent historical figures in activism, like Angela Davis, are only remembered as activists. activists, in a sense. How many people know, many people do not know that Angela Davis is a classically trained philosopher who studied with Herbert Marcuse, who's one of the greatest, who's one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century. Many people don't know that because they only see her through this idea of, Black Panther activism and critical race activism in the US. So I think this is definitely something that we should think about, because activism, unfortunately, is being co-opted by many people. And I'm pretty sure Birgit can tell us a lot about how this is done in Estonia, because, we've all, but Birgit, I think in particular, has had experiences with this. But what I wanted to just zero in on is that any kind of, to me at least, I liked your definition of activism, Birgit, kind of this very all-encompassing. Obviously, you kind of co-opt us with that definition, which is a very smart move. But I'll go along with it. I don't mind being co-opted at all with it. Why? Because I think of kind of scholarly responsibility, activism, public intellectualism, internationalism as praxis, as practices. In the same way that talking to your neighbor is a practice of everyday life. When we deal with knowledge, especially as academics, it is our, or at least it should be, here I'm being a bit normative, right? It is in our practice as scholars that we read, that we educate, that we research, that, we listen to these emotional appeals coming from Gaza that, you so gracefully read out to us. And everyone who's ever been to Gaza in the last 2-3 years in particular says the same thing. Those people are being systematically killed. And when we sit down as scholars, we kind of push beyond just the first instinct, the emotional instinct. We want to ask, what is the structure that reproduces that violence? Right? Not just why is there violence, but how in particular is it reproduced. And once you know that, once you study that, I think it's a moral responsibility. It is a practice of life for you to talk about it. You cannot just be silent about it. And this is very, very unfortunate that many people are silent about it, and some other people are kind of just ignorant about it. And to close it off, we recently were in one of our sit-ins, which is why we're doing these sit-ins. Because we're tired of being silent or polite or weighing both sides in a situation that is clearly one-sided, right? And so at one of these sit-ins, one of our colleagues passed by us. He's Estonian, and he said, "What do you want from us?" As in, what do you want from us Estonians, right? And I didn't respond to him back then because he, in passing, said it in Estonian, and other colleagues heard it and they translated to me. But my response would have been, we want the same things that Estonians wanted from others 35 years ago or more, right? I'm from Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm also Croatian, so what did we want from people 35 years ago? We want a measure of recognition that our suffering is valid, that we are being oppressed, that we want freedom, that we want peace. Very basic things. But people forget that, and I don't know why, but I think it's very problematic that they do.
Also, I want to immediately break the logic of Q&A in the end, so I'm going to turn to you in a second. But before I do, and as Toni pointed out, Angela Davis indeed is a brilliant scholar, and she is currently kind of really thinking of abolition feminism. And the abolition feminism has this brilliant term, both and. And I think that this is the way I think about activism, that it isn't bordered, it exists on a continuum, and it can be that you are an active citizen, but you also go further than that. The reason why I want to say go further than that, because I see a lot of people who are engaged in very serious activism sitting here who have contributed a lot. So I want to also kind of value and celebrate what they have done, and kind of say that there are some differences, and the both and mentality is actually very helpful in this case.
100%, and that's what I was thinking about too.
So yeah, but okay, breaking this kind of way of how we dialogue, I want to actually ask if the people sitting here, if you can take a couple of seconds and reflect what is your responsibility at this time, and if you want to share it, not take 10 minutes, but in a brief way, if you want to share it with us, then now I would welcome this. So if anyone wants to offer.
Or, we can also go if one of us has an additional comments while people think, and
yes.
Then we can take more responses after that.
We have.
I could have tried to speak up loud as well. But yeah, like as Kristi said as well, like talk to the people around me, first of all. I am a foreigner in Estonia, and my Estonian cycle is very passive. So talk to the people around me and like participate in activities that give visibility, because like in my opinion, I feel like many of us that are already here are experiencing this kind of, sorry, it feels to me like we're living in the Matrix, and when another person comes forward and says that what is happening is not okay, you start feeling that you're not in your own parallel reality, that there are others that see it. Because in Estonia currently it feels a lot like we're living in our own universe, and people seem not affected by what is happening. So it's our responsibility, I feel, to speak up so that others can feel that it's okay to speak up, because there must be others. Yeah. Like it cannot be that everyone is neutral. So I hope that there are others, and if they see you speaking about it, they're like, oh, this must be okay, maybe I can do it too. And then we become more and more, and it's a big wave, I hope. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And I just want to respond to this, what you said, like feeling alone and maybe like a lunatic in this crazy matrix. I want to say that we as scholars who are sitting here on the panel, I feel always, I'm now going to use this opportunity because I have the mic and I'm going to speak on behalf of Toni and Ben, but I think that they will agree, happens all the time, they will agree that we have a heightened responsibility. We have knowledge at our fingertips. We cannot passively sit on this knowledge. So I think that there is a signal when scholars who have trained for years and years come out and speak. Then the other people who think that they are losing their minds, they feel like, no, this isn't some kind of a fringe statement. There are actually evidence behind it. You know, there are people who have researched this. I cannot believe sometimes that I have to like reiterate things that you know, my colleagues have pointed to for decades. You know, there's decades of scholarship on Palestine. You know, the patterns are there. It's kind of like, so I just want to say that, yeah, scholars definitely have a heightened responsibility, and yeah.
Not trying to scholarly monopolize the space, so Kristi and Agnes, if you want to just reach out for a microphone, but I wanted to kind of pivot off what you said, which I think is very, very important. It's this idea that there must be others. Oh, and there are others. Oh, trust me, even amongst scholars, there are many others who come to us during our sit-ins or whatever events that we might have that even remotely touch on the idea of genocide, and in particular Palestine and Gaza, etc. And they come, you're doing good work. Good for you. Excellent. We support you. And then, yes, they go. And there are many citizens, non-scholars, who do these things. And my thinking in a democracy, right? Whether we uphold the value of democracy as something very important or not, we in Estonia and in Europe largely, we do live in a democracy, right? And so my thinking here is that these people do not feel safe enough to come out and support this. Maybe they do not fear the police, although, you know, there is evidence that they should fear the police and that we all should fear the police, unfortunately, given, you know, the arrests and whatever. But there's these social pressures that undermine democracy and democratic action daily. And this also shows us that democracy can never be a completed object or a completed project. It's an ongoing praxis. So I want to use this opportunity to thank you for contributing to that, and, you know, to everyone who's visible on Palestine, because it takes a certain dose of courage. And there are many who do not really practice that courage, unfortunately.
And to add to Toni's, I just want to say that academics have a very bad habit of never shutting up. So please, like, interrupt us. Yes.
But I believe the audience, you wanted to say something.
Can I add something very
Yes, yes, go ahead.
I felt very sad and offended when all of this started, I don't know, 1.5 years ago or more. I was about to go on a protest, and a person very, very close to me, like a best friend, like a brother, Estonian, with connections, told me very lovingly that I care a lot about you and maybe you shouldn't go.
For your
And
safety.
for my, so I wouldn't be blacklisted, or I don't know, he implied some things that he couldn't talk more about, and I was like, this is so sad, and I feel offended as well, because you think, I'm happy that you care for me, but I'm also offended that you think I'm that weak that I would not go because of your warning. And that's since then I feel like anyone that is holding the privilege of having white skin or a good passport should definitely go to these events, because these people like me don't care that much about being blacklisted. Imagine everyone else that is brave. I'm not brave, the others are brave that are coming with a weaker passport or a...
Own your privilege kind of thing, right?
Yeah, that's it.
But I wanted to thank you, and I kind of continue I feel a bit with your worry, because I feel very often when we speak in Estonia, and I feel a lot of foreigners who follow the topic feel that Estonians are like, why are they not doing anything, and why are they silent, and why don't they know or act or anything, but also to go back, like protesting in Estonia, this is not common for us. We can all make the jokes how silent Estonians are, but also protesting is not what we know or what we do. Like, okay, let's think more further than the last, let's say, 1.5 years in Estonia. There's like so few tiny, like occasional protests. Maybe 15 years ago, I was working in the municipality of Tartu, and I was the person who was registering all the public gatherings, meaning also protests. And I was the one who gave the yes or no. Well, anyway, I always gave yes, but anyway. But also, like throughout the time I worked there, like I can literally remember, I think, 2 protests. One was something super miniature, and one was when there was this scandal in Estonia, and the locals maybe remember, like there was some money brought with a plastic bag to some political party. And then there was a protest after this. I think it was like against the reform or against the Tartu municipality, whatever, something. And then there was like, just people from Tartu who felt like this is wrong, we need to protest. And they were then like trying to understand how to even make a protest in Estonia. And then they contacted me. I'm like, yes. Then do you need electricity? Like what you need? And they're like, I don't know, like super afraid to even ask. I'm like, okay, it's a public event. You have the right to have free electricity. You have the right to have this and that. And they were like, so like, whoa, like, can we do? So again, like protesting for Estonia, this is not what we do. Like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, protesting is, French people, they are violent on the street and they break and scream and like, whoa. So again, like, not to say that it's okay that the Estonians are so silent, but also like, it takes a bit of time for us to warm up to the idea of you need to be a bit loud to be heard, and we need to we can't use anymore the excuse of our sad history and we are so young and we don't know anything about the world and we're just discovering. No, we are big enough, we are grown up enough, and it's time to act. And I think also in our society this last 1.5 years is kind of also pointing it a bit out, that people also, I feel younger generations are feeling like, oh, but this is like a super shitty system, like why is it like this and why don't we speak? And I think it's also like, part of what we need to, as Estonians, grow out of. So I'm sorry that the Estonians are a bit slow with this.
I just wanted to say that in regards to protests, I mean, what's really interesting is after COVID, we noticed, I mean, even before COVID, there's been a lot of protesting. I mean, the anti-maskers. I mean, I think at one point, I remember, which is, again, I mean, we live in a democracy and they have the right to come out, but literally, some people have the ability to galvanize. I think at one point there were like 4,000 people or something at Vabaduse Väljak. I remember when Varro Vooglaid was there. I mean, I know this for a fact. It was packed. So it is something that is becoming more something that Estonians are doing. But again, there are certain topics still that are very. And I just wanted to point this out, that it's, we all know that there's this kind of comfortable setting where, you know, where you're with the tide, you go with the tide, and it's easy to go with the tide. I mean, even we know for sure that when we speak about, for instance, climate activism, I mean, you know, 15 years ago, it wasn't something that was, you'd be a crazy person, basically, you know, people, but now it's become a popular movement. It's like everybody's trying to jump on that bandwagon because it has gotten to that point where it's become completely normal to speak about the environment in regardless of the fact if actually people do anything about it or not, but it is a talking point that is necessary for people in politics, you know, to address, regardless of if they're even going to do anything about it, but they need to address that topic because it's a topic that is of importance to, you know, a substantial amount of people of the population. And I think that this is the point when we speak about certain topics. I mean, Palestine as well. I just want to say that the issue, I mean, we all know that the issue of Palestine has been, you know, it's been going on for decades and decades. And it's only now, I think in the last couple of years, last 5 years maybe, where we have noticed a shift in narrative, in the sense that before that, when you would say Palestinian, it was just immediately like, yes, now they would also say terrorists and, you know, you're a terrorist lover, but there's enough voices for every voice that says you're a terrorist lover, you know, there's a voice that stands against it, basically. But before that, there was like the narrative was completely hijacked. And now only has it become, there has become this platform. And I think that the point of activism for us at this, you know, whether it's scholars or whether it's, you know, people who have any kind of platform. I mean, you know, even a bar in Tartu is able to become a wonderful platform for you know, all kinds of different movements, including Palestine or you know, supporting Palestine. So that normalizes the discussion, because when you can't even have a normal discussion, it's like you're immediately silenced before you even utter the words. And this is I think this is what makes us feel like lunatics or crazy or whatever, is because you feel like nobody even wants to talk about this topic. Like, we're not even really debating it. The first month we had a debate in Eka. We had, you know, where, I don't know, people like Rein Raud and I don't know who all showed up and had this very kind of, you know, they had some sort of a discussion, but that was it. And then after that, it's as if there's nothing else to talk about. And Estonian television, same way. You know, we had a couple of moments where there was a bit of a discussion, and now it's silenced. So the strategy has become, let's not talk about it. And right now, the most important activism is everybody using whatever platform you have, whether it's, you know, you're a student at school, or whether you're a professor at university, or whether you have a bar, or whether you have a restaurant, or whatever. It's kind of like showing it, because it's a topic that needs to be addressed. And I think that that's really the problematic issue for us at this point, as people who, any topic that we would care about, we want to have at least that, let's have that discussion.
And I see that someone else wants to also respond to the responsibility question. So I would go there, but Toni, if you have like a brief comment.
No, it's just a funny anecdote with my experience with Estonian media trying to write on Palestine. I submitted an article to ERR in October. I'm interested in drone use and the technical systems in Gaza, how they kill people, identify people, etc. There's lots of research on that, and I sent my article to ERR. In the meantime, it got published internationally, but not by an Estonian publication. And the ERR, after 10 days, they rejected the article, and then they said that the reason that they rejected it was because it did not relate to Estonia's security. You know, and it was a very funny realization. And
Because that's the only news we talk
yes,
about.
that's the only news that's worthy of being published by the national. I have something else I want to say, but I do want to let the audience.
I can be really quick.
Yeah.
I think the responsibility, and I'm really happy that, Kristi, you brought out all the ridiculousness about how we even discuss this topic. And I kind of wanted to go very practical, because I feel like if you say that you're pro-Palestinian, a lot more is expected of you in terms of facts, in terms of knowledge, in terms of what you say, than from the other side, who comes in with emotions, with those kind of old, you know, what do you say, like, that don't have facts behind them, that don't even have international law behind them. But so much is expected from us regular people who just don't want to see babies being killed. Or, for example, musicians who speak up, and a lot more is expected of them than, for example, politicians or, you know, people with authority. So, in a sense, I would kind of want to hear what are the ways that we can make ourselves heard without being in a constant state of conflict, and kind of how to. I don't think it's easy to put the other or have the other side listen to us, because there is a worlds apart in terms of how we see the world. But at the same time, we have families at home who may not have that strong false narrative, let's say. How to talk to them without them reciting all of those things that they hear from Estonian newspapers, or those ministers who have a specific, you know, crowd that listens to them. So yeah, what are the practical things that we can say too, or how do we educate ourselves to become more confident in what we can say?
Thank you so much for that. I think that throughout this period we have all struggled a lot. So I can also relate to this, that you know, I have lost a lot of friends because they have either thought that I have radicalized, or you know, they don't agree with me, and so forth. So sometimes, you know, the conversation is shut even before it can open. And you know, during this period where I was kind of trying to be very active, I also didn't have like this extra energy to go and knock on their door and say that, how do you feel and how can you explain? But I do get that this is also a labor that we should do. I have listened to some of my colleagues who have talked with their parents, and human stories are very relatable. So kind of, you know, talking about why Palestinians hold on to keys, what does that symbolize for them, you know, the hope of return, and kind of like talking about these things. I also I'm obviously at this point that I'm also very tired and exhausted, and at a lot of the times I want to say that please read something. Like even Kristi mentioned this ECA debate, and I will not like qualify it. Like for me it's not a debate, because Rein Raud showed up admitting, first of all, that he doesn't know anything about Palestine, then saying that he saw one YouTube video which sort of shows that Palestinians are terrorists. Again, absolutely. So I say that I have very huge, like enormous kind of responsibility lies with scholars. They cannot flippantly engage with this topic knowing how this topic has been treated. So they actually have to do more labor. They have to be the ones who are brave. And I've seen so many like people who have a platform who say that they haven't spoken up because they feel that there's a backlash. So they feel like, you know, I'm an editor of that and that journal. I cannot speak because, you know, Estonian society, the majority doesn't, you know, support Palestinians. I think this is kind of like the most cowardly response that you can have. But yeah, there are obviously multiple strategies, but and it depends on, you know, what you're willing to do and, you know, how much time do you have. So sometimes if I have the choice that either I write something or I contribute to an activity, or I once again spend hours educating someone, then I'm not doing that anymore. I'm sometimes tired, obviously, of this. But yeah, other answers.
Yes. I also just do this, right? I rattle down the facts all the time, 70 years of apartheid, international law, all of these things, but it's not working. Actually, what I found is the best strategy is buy a book from Susan Abulawa, Against the Loveless World, and just give them to people. Like, who is not pro-Palestinian after reading her books? Then I guess you don't need to be friends. Like, it's unbelievable. This is the storytelling what we're talking about, all the horrors of this wrapped in an amazing story, extremely engaging. All of us can relate to many things that the characters go through. So buy more of her books and give them to your friends.
Or this book.
Or this book.
Or this book.
Or of course the namesake of this panel. One day we will all have been against this. It's a fantastic book. Easily, you can buy it in Rahbarawat, and it's a short read actually, but very powerful.
Yes, I wanted to add that I feel I am I gave up to approach the topic from to always try to then make people feel like why a Palestinian deserves to be a human being, because I feel that this justification for a Palestinian, I feel then they will forever follow the random stuff they heard. But me, I feel recently I much more mirror the fact that to put the blame, not to put my effort to try to protect the Palestinians who need to be protected, I agree, but I rather direct the stuff to the side of Israel. Okay, but if Israel feels that there's terrorists in Gaza, then Israel, as a modern Western country in Middle East, but then they have a great system of spies and court systems. If there's somebody committing a crime, then you find a person and then you judge them and then you sentence them, whatever is their stuff. So if there is I don't know, somebody who killed their neighbor, a drunken neighbor in Telliskivi, what the Estonian police start to bomb out of Tallinn? No, they will use their brains to find the fucking victim. And then that's I feel why are we back to this primitive stuff of there is a bad guy somewhere, let's erase this part of the earth. How is this? So I feel to get away from always repeating these facts of how Palestinians have occupied and everything, you rather point out how is this acts, these incredibly violent acts of Israelis normal, and then the person who was asking, who also doesn't have any much more detailed knowledge of anything, then he's more stuck as you felt stuck before, shit, how I protect now this story. So I feel this also is a good way to make these people feel a bit stupid in their not knowing anything, and then you can continue with your nice talk and exploration of this and that.
I would just quickly say that there's a hand down there, so we will give, But I will just quickly say, just as a strategy too, whatever real link or article that you read, just save it somewhere, save the link to that. And once somebody, you cannot give this out to everyone, obviously, but people who have your contact, you talk to them, just share the reading list with them. Most of them will not touch it. Don't have any hope that they will touch it. But
don't
still,
make a list. One link.
I make a list. I don't share it with anyone, but it's more of my own archive.
I share lists.
Yeah. But what I do want to say one thing, that I'm a little bit disappointed with students who have been, in 1966 when Patrice Lumumba was murdered by the CIA in the Belgians. Patrice Lumumba was the first president of independent Congo. He was the leader of the resistance. The Yugoslav students in Belgrade burned down the Belgian embassy. They literally burned it down. Right? And so I really miss this shit. I really miss this shit. And I don't want anyone to interpret here that I'm calling for someone to burn down Israeli embassy. You can, you don't have to. But I do, and Russian as well. This is very polite, the Russian embassy downtown.
Yeah, but it's being protected.
Well, I know, but they don't protect it on the first day. You have to act on the first day when it starts. No, so I'm being intentionally provocative, but to make a point, is that also student activism has really died down. Where I have seen it in the Baltics, where I've seen it in the Baltics, as with everything, we're forgetting activism around Ukraine. This is not at all to kind of criticize or undervalue the importance of activism for Ukraine and specifically against the Russian regime. I'm not talking about that. But, you know, we see how much the state has thrown its weight behind this. But this is shooting yourself in the foot because the state, Estonian state and many other states, are just actively undermining international law with this. Because if you can put a Ukrainian flag across the country and not put flags of other places that are basically suffering the same issues, then what you're telling to people is that we are selective about international law. We only do what we care about. Which would be fair if you made like a statement, right? But you're not making a simple statement. You're actually doing state activism. It's a very different order of meaning. So yeah, you don't have, please don't burn embassies down, but take that as an interesting historical anecdote.
We have someone back there.
We actually have a small queue in the audience who wants to speak, so I'm just gonna let everyone speak.
Hi, it's really strange coming to Estonia. I've been here about a couple of weeks and I have yet to see a Palestinian flag. That's where I come from. They're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. But one strategy is I downloaded the No Thanks app and it has everything. It's really depressing how many companies are involved in the genocide, but it's a real quiet power putting something back on the shelf and finding something else. So if you download that, it just makes you feel good. Honestly, just showing up, speaking up, that's all you can do. You're always going to come up against the 0.1% who will go, oh, it's too woke, or you're being anti-Semitic, or, you know, so there's nothing you can do about that. You know, just keep talking about it, and yeah, BDS all the way. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Good on your government. You're Irish, right?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Kneecap.
And it's actually really heartening because that government is centre right. So, you know, that's good.
There's Kristi.
I wanted to kind of also give some more on the question of the responsibility. I don't disagree with the idea that we should be pro-Palestinian because we are human and because we see kind of this injustice. But also I wanted to add, maybe it's also that there's not only just knowledge, but also some kind of personal experience attached to it. And just experience. As of Estonia, for instance, as you mentioned, 35 years ago, Estonians they needed this acknowledgement from the world during the struggle. You are from Bosnia 30 years ago during the siege of Sarajevo, for instance, as well. I'm from Ukraine, and for me, from my personal experience, because my city have been occupied and stuff, and I know how it feels. So for me, it's my responsibility personally to be pro-Palestinian because I recognize that they have been going through the same thing. So maybe there's also this kind of experience going along with knowledge that in Estonia specifically, there's this responsibility to be pro-Palestinian because Estonia itself had this struggle, and that it also supports other struggles as well, like that. Like for instance in Ukraine. It's more like not just like a statement, but also a statement with its question marks or like,
We will discuss that. Good, thank you. That was really cool.
Yes.
Oh, I just want to say, Lumumba was killed in 61, so the burning was 61, 62, not 66. I apologize. Scholars.
Thank you. I also have my perspective on responsibilities. On the one hand, I'm still thinking about it a lot, and I don't have an answer for it. I'm learning from different people's perspectives, but the responsibility feels large and heavy. And the question that I would like to hear your views on is that we've talked a lot about how it's important to talk about this issue and raise awareness and make it more visible. And I think I agree, but on the other hand, it feels kind of performative or like superfluous, that talking, I feel, only helps so much. And in the face of an ongoing genocide, it often feels too little for me, but I don't know what is the thing that would more practically help, or how, or so what are the ways that from talking we could get to helping the Palestinian people in a more practicable way. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to take this.
Okay, so on this point of different burdens of evidence and backing up with facts, I just wanted to point out how example for the Minister of Interior Affairs makes his statements on Palestine and activists for Palestine and for example, stating that how can it be genocide if the population in Gaza has increased over a certain amount of years. This is just one example of those double standards, and also I wouldn't maybe like to read too much into it, but for me it's just a little bit disheartening that the officer of PPA who gave those valuable insights on this previous topic and would have been very, very good audience for this discussion, now left for before this topic. So I don't know, is it telling or is it not, but just something to bring out.
Yeah, I think that we will respond after
we'll
give space to people, but yeah, we're trying to.
Just quickly wanted to say, I love the numbers logic, and whenever I'm faced with that, I always tell them that there's never been more Estonians in history than in 1989, number-wise, right? And then, especially or Lithuanians, and then they shut up, because they realize what the point is.
I just wanted to add one more thing, inspired by the Ukrainian friend. We should also remember, because I felt this recently, that if you have been in the place of someone else experiencing the same, you have the responsibility to talk, but the sides can't change, and your responsibility is towards the event, not towards the country, if you're catching my drift. So if tomorrow Russia was facing genocide, I would 100% support Russia for that particular event, and we should remember that. We shouldn't pick a side and stick with it through thick and thin, because there is good actions, bad actions, and anyone can commit them, and we should be very alert about that, because if I have like a little bit more time, yesterday I was in Raikoja Platz. There was a drunk Estonian, very Aryan-looking guy, shaved head, shouting Heil Hitler and other things like that in the square. People were feeling uncomfortable, it seemed. And interestingly, the responsibility of calling the police fell on me, I guess, because I did call the police. The police eventually came. I talked to them, pointed at the person, then they very politely talked to the person, and I don't know what they actually did practically, but the point was that they removed him from the premises without arresting him or anything, even though 8 police officers arrived and the car that arrests people, let's say. Interestingly for me, that's good that the police arrived. I do remember though very vividly, because I was there when an activist for Palestine was arrested for saying from the river to the sea. 5? Okay. So that being not illegal led to an arrest, and a person shouting Heil Hitler and singing and saying verbally in Estonian, we should kill all the blacks tomorrow the war starts, they should all be shot down. Like, that person was warned and politely, without even touching him, led off the Vabaduse Veljak. And I saw how they arrested the people at the protest. It wasn't very friendly and no touchy-touchy. So that disappoints me a lot as well in terms of where does Estonia stand in general towards legality and things like that.
Maybe they should have been drunk so they wouldn't have been talking.
Yeah, you know the cue, so...
And to add to our previous comment of how Estonian double standards, is at the same time there's this guy by the name of Indrek Kaabel that goes to Tammsaare Park pretty much every single day, and he has like a pre-recorded speech in Estonian, which actually is anti-Semitic, because he has a speech and he ties everything to Judaism. But the PPA, if you go on the police website, that shows like all the registered demonstrations, Indrek Kaabel is allowed to demonstrate pretty much without restriction. And if we were to look up if any upcoming rallies are present or any upcoming demonstration, like his name is always there.
Can I ask what you were doing, what you're planning with the flag?
No, I was actually gonna bring it in if we were gonna hold it up somewhere. This is the flag of the South African Communist Party. This is also legally permissible under Estonian law because this is not associated with Russia or the Soviet Union.
Okay.
I've never seen the flag before, but thanks for bringing it.
I think that we...
wanted to say something.
Yes.
So yeah, just quickly, I think just one thing that I would maybe add, like for me, the responsibility, I know there's like a lot of foreigners also in this room, and so me as an Estonian, I feel a very strong responsibility, not being a scholar or like anything, but to educate other fellow Estonians, also being in Ireland for a long time and seeing as well all the flags and then coming here and seeing like what's going on. And I think it's also for me like to find a way of responsibility or like how to kind of do this. My background is in filmmaking, and I sent one movie to my dad one day, and I was like, I'm not sure he's watching it. And then he came back to me. It's about like how the Israelis are forbidding Palestinians to be Xatar. And he came back to me asking about like, what is this plant? Like, what's this thing? And I had some of it, and then he tasted it, and then he like still keeps talking about this, and like still, basically this was his door to like start hearing and opening up and kind of being more curious. So I think it's also about like finding your way to it. And then I realized like I've always believed in the power of audiovisual media and in movies, so then I organized a few film screenings. And I think it's also important to, and then I'm helping to do the Palestinian social media account, which is also I think good resource for anyone who wants to talk with people. We specifically wanted to put content out in Estonian and with like sources and stuff like that. So, and also to acknowledge that like every time there's this event or a screening or a protest, there's more and more people. So people are joining. It's slow, as someone said, we're very slow. But and also the Instagram is getting more and more followers all the time. And I think it's, sometimes we kind of, it can feel very like hard, and it is. But I also wanted to like recognize that there is some progress. Yeah, thank you.
And this also, on my end, from our responsibilities and general observations, is we can also like continue reading and looking up from other sources, from other nations, other perspectives. For instance, everyone here already knows how staunchly pro-South African I am, short of actually living there. And from there, it's where I pretty much get like the most cleanest, most thorough observation of pretty much everything to do with like international law, apartheid, Palestine, everything. And these are like pretty much unrestricted sources. And also, it's also very telling that South Africa is like one of the only countries in the world that's very openly calling into question the West versus the rest, international law, and it's also for the second time already, the International Court of Justice's legitimacy is once again up for debate. And even most recently, I think it was even like less than 2 years ago, when the South African Foreign Minister and the government of Namibia both said that the West is in no place to criticize or condemn the actions or the human rights of any other country. Well, with the possible exception of Ireland and Spain. And even just
Ireland, not Spain. Ireland.
And even more recently, there was a Namibian German activist by the name of Horst Kleinschmidt. He was once a missionary. He was once a missionary during the apartheid in South Africa. He was born in Namibia. His parents moved to South Africa right after the apartheid was initiated. Then when he grew up, he became an activist. He was eventually exiled. He moved back to South Africa after its freedom, and Kleinschmidt recently was on Salam Media, and he even stated that he had like a lot of very scathing criticisms for Germany and Europe in general. And he basically said that he has friends in Berlin where he said that if groups like Jews for Justice in Palestine were to say the exact things in Germany that they are able to openly say in South Africa, there would be Jews who are arrested for anti-Semitism because Germany, this so-called paragon of like freedom and liberty, is so hyper-repressive. Yeah. There was one other thing. Let me see if I can.
I would now. You can think about it, and we can discuss this later. Thank you so much for all the reactions, and I'm glad that we have had this dialogue. I think that we can now kind of give space to answer, like, not all of these things, but kind of focus on some of the things. And I want to go back there because I agree in this sense that activism and protests, they exist on a continuum, right? So we have different things. We have marches, we have a refusal to do something, we actually block the activities and, getting more material, right? And I think that we always have to bear in mind the context. So I'm very proud of the dock workers around the world who have actually put their bodies on the line and stopped the arms shipments to Israel. I'm also proud of the Freedom Flotilla, and also when you look at the history of it, right? So this is not the first time, and they have been successful in a couple of cases, but there have actually been people killed. Because they did this, but this is absolutely important because what we have seen, not always obviously, because in 2002, I think if I'm not mistaken, the US protester was bulldozed over. So I'm talking about Rachel Corrie, right? But I still feel that our privilege, our white skin needs to get in the face of this violence, because there are a lot of examples where our presence changes, the Israeli response. It brings it down a notch. So I'm very proud that there is the Freedom Flotilla at the moment. There is also a ground march from Tunisia heading towards Rafah, and other actions. And I think that this is needed. We also need to think about the context where we are at, right? So the Estonian context, what I was at, in the beginning shocked was how little knowledge there was, and kind of this absolutely insane legwork that one needed to do to explain some of the most basic stuff, and sort of kind of get distracted by stupidity all the time. Like I'm truly amazed by the lack of serious journalists in Estonia. I don't know where they are. What is going on? What are people studying in Tartu, where they are actually teaching journalism, like ethics, investigative journalism? Where is it? Huge question mark. So I felt like, Marianne pointed out some very important things. I think that kind of building the knowledge bases in the Estonian context has been very necessary. So it's a very nice resource, and I applaud you for all the work that you have done. I see a lot of people here. I know that they have committed a lot of labor and care work throughout this period. So I'm very grateful for them, and I think that this is necessary because all of these, there is an archive of knowledge now that you can point to that wasn't there. Because when I started also writing, I was like, oh my God, there are no articles on Palestine in Estonian, I mean, obviously, not in English or in other languages. Yeah, it's kind of like, it is contextual, but I agree, Estonians especially need to think of, what are the direct actions that we can participate. I do know that some Estonians are actually joining the march to Rafah, so it is brilliant that they're also participating in this. And yeah, this is kind of like we need to think what are the next steps. So I agree with that sentiment. There is a lot I could say, but I want to pass it on now to the other panelists.
I just wanted to quickly respond. I believe, I don't know your name, the last row there, you said that, you're worried that that being in public and talking about it is performative. But that's what I was saying earlier. It is performative, right? Not performative in a sense that you don't care about it, that you're just virtue signaling, but performative in a sense that we get out and we talk to your neighbors, as I was saying earlier. Kristi was mentioning it. You talk about all sorts of things, but you don't also have to talk. Like, that's why we have the sit-in. We just annoy people. And I think there's value in activism when it annoys people, because that's how you get them to kind of get curious. But some reject you, but some people will actually get curious on this. So I do believe that this performativity is not to be rejected. It is to be embraced. And then, continue with it. Obviously, you have a spectrum. You can do sit-ins, you can do protests, you can burn embassies, you can do all sorts of things. But at least I'll say it again. I'm sticking with it. But, one more, I don't care, Capo, wherever you are, I'm here. Anyways, but, this performativity is what matters. Why? Because it's a practice that you do. And I think it leaves an archive. What you were saying, it leaves a track record. And I think this is very important.
I feel like the topic of Palestine and the situation now is kind of bringing out like two topics in Estonia, because I feel that, again, we need to support as much as we can, but I feel also it is really time that inside of Estonia, if you feel a bit, pointless to try to make Palestinians sound, again, a bit more human, I feel again like, but what can we do inside of Estonia? We can attack our representatives and our government for but then if there's a question, why should we support Palestine? But why are we supporting Israel? Why are we supporting something that doesn't follow any of those rules of this modern society that we so badly want to be part of? So I feel also, again, not to get stuck to the forever spiral of protecting Palestinians, but more pointing out, but okay, if you don't care about Palestine, it's too far and too whatever, but why are we supporting and backing Israel so bad? Why? And I think this is a very this direct question that needs to go to the ministers and representatives, and also even just to annoy them and to really point out that there are people to push on it. And also, but why it's also important to speak up for Palestinians, just for Palestinians, because in this society we still have a lot of racism, and I think this points out of that part, because there's a part of capitalism that is connected more and should be the question should go more towards the governmental or institutions, while at the same time more in the society level, it's more to still question this blunt racism that we have and we somehow follow and we take over from the beautiful West. But why the hell do we take it over again? And I think this is two stuff that Palestine brings it out, while at the end of the day, I still personally feel very strong it's because the question and everything what is happening in Palestine, it's not because of Palestinians. This is single-handedly an outside reason for it. So there's no point to put all the energy just to say Palestinians are good people, but to say this comes from outside and this is what I feel we need to fight. If it just be a little developing country that is a bit messy and needs time, well, the world is full of them and we need to support them and be nice. But this is so bluntly from outside, and how can we then still agree with this and say politically also, yes, this is what we follow, there are great friends. no, they're not. Like what? And also in our society, I feel like we use a lot of this Ukraine, Russia, but also then like Russia is our excuse to put a lot of money in guns and protection, and we need to protect ourselves to feel strong and powerful. And somehow like then what? I even lost my train of thought. But anyway,
Estonia even said that they want to fight this to the last Ukrainian. No mention of peace, no effort of like.
But then we want to so badly protect ourselves, but we don't believe in the laws of protecting people internationally. So again, like then why are we even buying those guns if like we actually don't follow this?
I think Estonia is more focused on wanting to have Russians killed than protecting Ukrainians.
But there's that, but there's also the U.S. factor. I think Estonians are really careful, which is just, you left the Soviet Union to go to the U.S. I mean, what's the actual point of independence?
And also a very brief answer to like pretty much everything, like why do countries like this?
I'm being very conscious of the time, so I want to say that within this panel we have 6 minutes left. So if Kristi and Ben want to react, then you can do it, and then I would use the final 10 minutes that we have to get some questions or thoughts or very concrete ideas about what do you see we can still do, what are you thinking about doing, if you want to highlight, because I see a lot of people who have done so much as activism, and I'm also grateful that there is also intersectionality, so we're bringing the climate and social justice together, as Greta said and has underlined. And notice also the double standards. But okay, I'm abusing the 5 minutes. Kristi and Ben.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels as if we are constantly, like there's a narrative out there that has become accepted, that we navigate everything that we do in a specific narrative, and usually that narrative is that there is this that the West has a superior moral high ground. This is kind of like this is what we whatever is good or whatever development or whatever is moving towards equity, justice, whatever, is usually affiliated with some sort of Western moral superiority.
Well, that's wrong.
But we still have that narrative that is, but they're still holding on to it.
Not the Kallas narrative.
Yes, for us we see it, but, again, I feel like the problem for me isn't the fact that we're, yes, of course, we have maybe more structures and more systems that work, that would maybe allow us to fulfill these moral, this moral high ground. But at the same time, we are completely losing sight of, and this has been going on for a very long time. I mean, probably ever since, the late 90s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. I feel as if at that point, it's just become kind of like, we're not able to have any sort of self-criticism. Anything that is self-critical is somehow as if, makes it not just Russian, but as if all of those oppressive systems that have been destroyed are somehow being justified because we're criticizing ourselves. And we're not even, and we don't teach ourselves, we don't teach our children, we don't teach, we still suppress this kind of critical thinking of looking at ourselves and being okay with pointing out what we are doing wrong. But instead, we're so focused on what everybody else is doing wrong. And we constantly have this war on something, whether it's war on terror or war on drugs or war on God knows, or war on migrants or the invaders from, our borders. And it's just like we're so fine with that because it's become so, we're just constantly scared. We're constantly scared, and they're constantly. There are certain actors that have become vilified, you just say Arab or Muslim in that sense. And not just necessarily Arab or Muslim, but, African or Mexican. I mean, my God, it's like there are certain, catchphrases that it doesn't matter where you live, you hear it and immediately you already have a stereotype without actually having met any of these people. And we're all brainwashed at the end of the day. That's just so. This is why we need to be self-critical, because we're all complicit in this whole situation. This is the way that I see it. And because we're so afraid to criticize ourselves, because now that has become always a case of national security. Oh, we're criticizing ourselves. That means we must be Putinists, or we must be God knows what, or we support we love terrorists. We love Hamas, And I'm like, it's like you can't even say anything about yourself without feeling that there's something and being constantly like you're always needing to justify. Oh, I have to, wait, so many disclaimers I need to make before I actually say what I want to say. I'm not this, 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 I'm not supporting.
Paralyzed.
Exactly. You're fucking paralyzed. And so for me, on a personal level, I am stopping with the apologies. I couldn't give two shits, really, about what anybody thinks. I think Israel is an occupation. I think that Israel could be a legal country, but it's not a moral country. The Soviet Union was a legal country. I mean, was it moral? So all of these, when we talk about, and nothing lasts forever. So for me, it just feels as if we can't even talk about states or anything anymore without it being somewhat, and then giving obviously the red light to Capo or to whoever is in charge. I mean, we all know what happened in the United States and the UK and whatever. So there's always a reason to be afraid of yourself. And I just want to mention this. This really is something that Estonians especially need to look at, because we all know how, we even have this saying in Estonia where Estonians, an Estonian's favorite dish is his neighbor or another Estonian. Because back in the Soviet times, it was, you couldn't trust your neighbors because they tell on you. So now it's becoming, and I'm sure this is something in academia as well that has become very, like, if a lecturer or a teacher or somebody feels that there is a student, somebody who is of suspicion, and we see how this has happened in the United States, then you have the right to tell on them because you suspect. So in general, I'm ending it now. My point here is that we need to become more self-critical, and I think that is what we need to normalize. And then hopefully we can have real discussions about things. Even if we're wrong, it's fine.
Thank you to Kristi, and I'm saying that this is not only your opinion. I think we have been using as a shorthand Palestine, but actually we all of us know that it's the occupied Palestinian territories. It has been for a long time, so this is the point. This is where the evidence lies. The panelists are out of time. We have 9 minutes left, so I would open it up again. If someone could, I cannot.
Yes, I'm on it. Before, just a quick note from myself as well regarding the topic. I asked, we had a panel a while ago. We had some higher politicians as well, and the discussion also ranged around the current Israeli occupation of Palestine. And one of the politicians said that, well, yes, there is, like, they see the moral issue, but from their end they said that the social issue is that we don't have an active kind of Palestinian diaspora or like a community as much as you have the Jewish one. So that means that the community building that you're all doing here, you're doing in other circles as well, plays a huge role in Estonian politics.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just before anyone begins, because I want to hear as many comments as possible, try to be brief.
Okay. So all this this feeling of intention. All this what you talked about, Kristi, I think this very much leads into acquiring yet another weapon system from Israel, and also more self repression and so on. So this is like this kind of circle on a state level. This is a kind of circle of self repression. I would say, if it makes sense.
Thanks. I think this question was before. I've seen this hand for a long time.
Sorry, hi. I'm Palestinian. I'm from the West Bank, and to answer the one who asked what to do, as activists or as people who want to speak about Palestine, we have to know a lot. You don't, because I don't. As Palestinian, I do not know all the terms. I do not know all the. I do not know all the historical facts. I've studied them at the school, but then at the end, I forgot about them because I lived there. I did not care that much. Because I lived there, I did not understand that I needed to care more because I might go out of Palestine and live somewhere where I have to be the activist. But still, like it does not. After 18 months, it's still not registered to me that I have to be more vocal, because at the end of the day, I'm so tired as well. I'm living it. I have lived it, and I have a child now that I don't want to inherit this trauma to him as well. But then I understand that it's come on, you're not alone. You're not one person. You're part of the Palestinian community, and like what to do? Yes, read Rashid. What's his name? 100 Years of War on Palestine. Read that. Read for Susanna Abu Hawa. Read for Rifat Al-Arair, because he's the latest who have been writing about Gaza and from people of Gaza. And yes, read about more of Palestinian authors and poets. Read poetry. Read Palestinian poetry. If you don't like books, it's all in there in the Palestinian poetry. And whenever you see Palestinian or somebody who is brown, go talk to them. To be honest, we feel lonely in Estonia. We do, and like just to say, hey, let's go for a coffee. Even if you don't want to, like just say like, hey, hi. Just say hi, so they understand that they are.
I see you.
I see you. Yeah, you're there. I see you, and that works.
Thank you.
First, one little irony is that maybe this event is funded by Israel also, because if you look there, probably many of these have business with Israel, software or whatever.
That is true. We can't avoid it.
It's incredible. So, but talk to neighbors, talk to this. Nobody talks to neighbors because neighbors close the door of their flat and they see someone in the staircase. So. But the thing is that for the last 34 years, Estonia had the time to become something different than what it was in the past, in the Soviet time. But the way the city is built, a city is building society. Tallinn has been built exactly how the Soviet Union was built. Flat residential areas with no services under, no cafes, no shops, no bike. Everybody has to go to. I mean, I think about the pensioners who don't have a car and have to go on the bus to buy bread and milk. Half an hour from home. People are just going alone on the bus, going alone in the car, going alone everywhere. It has become a Bolt and Netflix society. I mean, I am from Spain and half Belgian. It's not about being Southern. I mean, if you are in Helsinki, you have cafes and bars and places to go. You go to Stockholm, you go to Amsterdam. which the weather in Amsterdam is raining. 80% of the time it's raining. People are on the bike, going to the bars, going to the shops, local shops. You have to repair your zipper of the pants or cut your hair in a shopping mall in Estonia. It's totally, the way the city is built, then you don't talk to neighbors. And people are behind the screen watching all the evening, drinking, home alone, watching. Because I live in Christine, and it feels it's nearby. And then I check, okay, my flat from Toni Silver is 700 meters. And then in Spain, from a random flat, 700 meters away, there is everything. Hairdressers, parks, everything. So you don't see human beings here. You don't see anyone in the streets. Then,
that's neoliberalism for you. You want on steroids.
What?
It's neoliberalism and on
What
steroids.
Oh, Tallinn is so clean. Of course Tallinn is clean. There is nobody on the street. So, so one thing is this, that everybody is just sitting home and you cannot so the only way I was thinking a couple of things, like an irony. If somebody has a video blog or is good to let's make Palestine studio, like an Ukraine studio, you know, like 30 seconds or something. I'm talking about this. And second is maybe, or making this, you know, in Eurovision, the lead singer, like I don't know how many famous people appeared, but in Eurovision in Belgium, the national, not the Flanders TV, the main one of Flanders, broadcasted the messages. The first person who appeared was Koen Wouters, the lead singer of the most famous group in Belgium. Can you imagine Koitome doing that? Or this kind of, I mean, or in Spain, Javier Bardem. But all the main singers, directors, actors, writers, journalists, they talk. It's enough. Who is there? Anyone? Can you tell me? Is there anyone in Estonia? Anyone? So there's nothing to, I mean, I feel it's becoming antipathetic for me also, Estonia. I feel like leaving, going to Spain. Of course, in Spain there are many idiots also. But the thing is that in Spain we have diversity. We are more idiots in Spain than in Estonia. The thing is that I can find people. There are more, but there's more diversity also.
I don't know if you read this, but what I find encouraging is that the Estonian government is about to start taxing Netflix. Oh, I think people will start protesting. I'm telling you.
So maybe what we should do is to go to the door of ETV.
Estonians protest when their privileges are not there anymore. I remember
not even because they're increasing the VAT is 24% going to be on bread. In Spain it's been 0 and 10%. 20 complaints. So last thing.
Okay.
In Estonia in summer, nothing happens. So Antoine Gamera, what do they talk about? The birds in the nature. And so maybe going to Antoine Gamera building, to ETV building, a couple of days, and then somebody will come down and ask us what's going on here. Yes? Talk about Palestine finally, please. And then maybe they open the door to talk about the topic. Just because also, you know, in West Europe, all the politicians live in this bubble. You cannot access them. But here, politicians and journalists, you see them on the street. So it's easy to be at the door of ETV. Yeah. But in Spain, you cannot go to the door of the television. So talking to the neighbor doesn't work, I think.
Okay, thank you. I'm very conscious of the time. We're already 1 minute over. Okay, one last comment, which will be...
Okay, yes, it's a really fast comment. So we were talking about the relevance of the protests in Estonia. So my kind of idea I wanted to throw in is maybe that we should try to increase the quantity of protests. Maybe, because for instance in the US, all the people I know, for instance in the US and Canada, in Western Europe, they have protests every week, every weekend. Maybe we should try to increase the quantity of these protests so that more people, when they go out, they can actually see that this is happening. When we had the march, I was so happy because before that we were all confined to the Vabaduse Väljak. We didn't go outside of that. No one would see us if we were just Vabaduse Väljak, but now we went to the old town and we marched through this. So maybe we should try to kind of increase the quantity of the protests so that more people actually can see that.
Let's also try to get Igor Taus down. Setuma, how call it? Setuma.
Oh, yes.
Municipal elections, yes. When there is these talks with politicians there, we should go and all that we are supporting Palestine, we should. Who are you? And then if they don't listen to me, then the next one will ask, and then we will confront only one politician, that is the Social Democrat, because the rest we know.
Thank you for these comments. Actually, I like the analysis. With all the architecture and the society and cafes and all sorts of things, and it's really good.
And you can go to the cafe, but if you drive, you cannot drink. Because it's so far to go to the cafe.
I like the passion, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for Progressiivne for inviting us. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, this is how you contribute to the conversation. And I'm really great.
Well, I mean, I think.
Say that we are here.
Yeah. So yes, I want to say that I'm closing kind of officially the panel. I also want you to clap for the panelists who have done a brilliant job.